Here's a 2998 that I've just bought, and I thought it was interesting to look at to make a grading. Now, the first thing to note on this watch is that it's in sort of terrible condition. Terrible might be too strong, but it's in a condition that is pretty bad. If it wasn't a 2998, I would probably not think to purchase it. But the first thing that strikes us is the triangle loom hour hand, and that's a very rare handset. Worth a great deal of money on its own. Second thing to note is that the dial is, well, it's not great. The surface of the dial has a few issues, and if we zoom in on the dial we can actually see that the surface is quite dry, and in places it is bubbled from underneath the paint. But the print is pretty good. There's no decay in the print, which is unusual given the state of the dial. So the dial is, I would say, in the region of fair. The bezel, interestingly, if I go in quite close, the bezel has a greenish tint. It is also in terrible condition, and I think it's a very clear, fair condition. The case, well, the case is pretty good. All of the straight lug cases suffer some sort of polishing or degradation. They just all seem to. It's very, very rare that we find a straight lug that is genuinely unpolished, in spite of what most of the American dealers will say. If we look at the back, you see those two bevels are equidistant or a similar size, and so I'm happy with that. So the case, if it was a later watch from the sort of 60s, late 60s or 70s, you would definitely give that a sort of fair. But actually, in this watch at the moment, it's probably more in line with good, because that's just the way I seem to work. Now, if we look at the case back, we can very clearly see that it's a 2998-5, and it's got two service marks in it. And if we look here, the first thing to note is the lip of the watch here. This is there's evidence of either corrosion or it's very dirty. I suspect it's corrosion, because if I put my stick in there, it doesn't come out. Let's have a quick look at the movement. Now, this movement is apparently correct. It's a 321, and it is relatively clean, although it is dirty, if that makes sense. Clean in that the parts don't show any decay or water damage, but it's dirty because there are literally little bits of dirt in it, and it will benefit enormously from a service. While we're here, we can see this crown is incorrect, and we'll try and find a better crown. So let's put this back together. I'm going to go to the auctions next week, and one of the things I expect to see whenever I open a watch is that the dust cover will be covered in fingerprints, because understandably the auction let you take the back off, but people just put their fingers on it. Disrespectful. And here we have the complete watch. Now, one of the things I would say is that all the parts look like they've been with the watch since it was new. So that adds a lot of value to me. And so if we go through each sort of area and give it a grade, the dial is fair, the bezel is probably poor, the case is honestly fair to good compared to some of them. and the movement will be excellent once it's serviced. The pushers look good, the crown is wrong, so there is a little bit of work to do to bring it completely right. I mean, it needs a service and a crown, but other than that, I think this will actually turn out quite well. I have considered relooming this dial. The trouble with relooming is that the dial itself is not good. The base of the dial, the body color of the dial is not good. The print's good, but if you were to reloom this, I think it would look out of place. And so I'm not going to. So overall, I think it's a fair example, but we have to add a substantial percentage to the valuation because of the commensurate parts. In other words, all the parts are go together, and this triangle loom handset, which I've seen traded, admittedly, 2 years ago for over $5,000 US. I'm not sure they're worth that now, but it is definitely a highly desirable attribute. I think this watch is going to clean up nicely, and whilst it may never get a higher grade beyond fair or fair to good, it's still going to be a very attractive watch because it hasn't been messed about, all the parts haven't been changed, and it is an original watch in my opinion. So there you have it, fair to good.